Okay, what I'm reviewing is Deland Animal Hospital and the treatment that they did not do for my poodle, Rembrandt. The promised surgery never occurred, and because of that, I had to have him euthanized. I don't want anybody to have to go through this. If you take your dog to a vet and they promise to do something, they should do it. If your dog dies on the operating table, at least they tried. They never tried in my case. On March 31st, my poodle was taken for a walk about 11 o'clock or so in the morning. And when he came back from the walk, he was a little tired. My wife said that he didn't lead like he usually does. We have a Doberman too, and usually the poodle was the one that would always lead. And she thought maybe he wasn't feeling good. He laid down underneath the coffee table, which was one of his favorite places to lay down. And I think I was probably watching football. It was a Saturday. And around a little before 3, I thought I better check on him because he hadn't moved a whole bunch since that happened. Went down, checked his nose. It was cold. My wife and I offered him a treat, probably a little piece of chicken or something, and he didn't take it. So I knew something was wrong at that time. He would always take a treat. So I told her I was going to take him into the veterinarian, have him checked. My vet was closed. It was a Saturday afternoon, so I thought we were blessed to have Deland Animal Hospital so close to us. It's only about 10 minutes away. Whenever we go on vacation, we take our dogs, and I always check ahead of time to make sure there's a 24/7 emergency care facility available that will take new patients on an emergency basis. We always want to make sure that's available. So I was not hesitant at all about taking him in. The Deland Animal Hospital was all kinds of accolades, best in the west of our county, and so forth and so on. So I called him to go in the car, which he loved to go for a car ride. He jumped up and probably walked 10 or 15 feet and just collapsed, lay down. So I knew he was probably seriously ill. My wife and I carried him out to the car. I drove him down to Deland Animal Hospital and arrived at 3:10 on that day. He's too big. He's around a little over 80 pounds, and he was too big for me to carry. So I walked into Deland Animal Hospital, and I told him my dog is in the car, he's dying, and he's too big for me to pick up. They immediately sent out 3 people. One of the people was a gentleman, and he asked me if my dog bites, and I said no, and he reached in, picked him up, carried him in the back. I called my wife right then, and I said, hey, it looks good. They're giving him priority treatment. This is the best I could hope for. Within about 15 minutes, I got, just looking at to make sure I got the exact time down, but I called my wife at 3:26 and told her, my wife, that Rembrandt was getting priority treatment. I called her again at 3:45. The 3:45 was immediately after I talked to a veterinarian that came out after examining Rembrandt. They were very detailed in what was wrong. They thought it was a ruptured spleen, that he was bleeding internally, that the injury to his spleen was probably caused by a tumor. The tumor could be, they said, either malignant, in which case the prognosis was really poor, and if he survived the surgery, he would live maybe a month or 2 with chemo. They said if the tumor was benign, they could remove it, and he had a good chance of recovery. So that's when I called my wife. I called her at 3:26, so that was after I talked to the veterinarian. Shortly after that, it was a few minutes, a gentleman came out with an itemized list of what they were going to bill me for, which was surgery, antibiotics for after surgery, a list of about 20. Well, I could hold up. Maybe you could see it, but this is the treatment plan that he had. He started reading it, and I said, "This is what you're going to do right now." He said, "Yes," and I said, "Well, how much is it?" And I'll just pay for it. Go do it. And they said, "Well, it'll be $1,800. So I paid it. He went in the back. I figured he's going under surgery, and either he'll make it or he won't. I also signed a DNR, which I realized there was a possibility he would die. So I did not have a do not resuscitate order. I went home, waited on their call. At 5:50, they called. My wife answered, and they said, "Is it all right to give him a blood transfusion?" We thought he was in surgery, and of course, blood transfusion was approved. 9 o'clock, we still hadn't heard anything, right? A little before 9. So let me back up a minute. 8:40, one of the veterinarians had called our house, but they called my cell phone. Well, when I'm home, my cell phone's in a charger, and I don't hear it. I'd left my main landline number with them to contact me, and that's what they called for the blood transfusion. I found that message the next day. It said, "Your dog is dying. Call us right away." So at 9, I hadn't heard that message. I called them, and they said, "You need to come in and pick up your dog and take him somewhere else because we do not have a surgeon." That was devastating. We thought he was having surgery, and it turned out he had laid in the back room there for 6 hours, bleeding out. The treatment that they said they treated him, everything they could do, it turned out the treatment was 2 blood tests and a blood transfusion in 6 hours. The blood test, I looked up the machine that they had listed for the blood test. Blood test takes 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So in 2 minutes, they had the blood test results, gave him a transfusion, 2 minutes more. The rest of the time, he's just lying there bleeding. We're not there. We never leave our dogs more than 3 hours, 4 at the max, in 10 years. We just take them with us, or we go out for a few hours and come home. They're part of our family. So he was lying there 6 hours without us, with nobody he knew, struggling to breathe, dying. My wife and I got down there. They had a rebate on my credit card bill for $700, I think, or so dollars. And they brought Rembrandt out. He was barely alive. When we took him in, he could lift his head, and he could struggle. He could get up a little bit. But when I picked him up, he was a dish rag. He couldn't do anything. They gave me a Post-it note with an address of another emergency facility affiliated, was the name of it. So we took him there. And Dr. Whalen was their surgeon, but she was in surgery. In fact, Deland Animal Hospital had been trying to set up an appointment with her for probably an hour, and she told them that she was going to be in surgery, but they sent me there anyway. So when we got there, we waited in their room for an hour with him struggling to breathe, dying. And when Dr. Whalen came in, she looked at him, and she didn't even really examine him. She said that he's not going to make it. And I said, "Well, you haven't even checked him yet." And she did a quick check and pretty much said that he's not going to make it, so we had him euthanized. The owner, Tom McPhail, of Deland Animal Hospital, was on vacation. So I called the next day and wanted to talk to him. They said, well, we can help you. He's gone. He's not here. So I figured he didn't know anything about what was going on, and I really couldn't wait to tell him how badly my dog had been treated. Well, he got back from vacation about a week later and called, and I talked to him, and he did refund the rest of the money, said he was going to retrain his staff, said they did not do what he wanted them to do. But then he said he was in touch with them the whole time, which floored me. He knew what was happening. I thought he did not know what was happening. So I wrote my review and I included him in there, saying that veterinarian knew what was going on, the owner, but he didn't do anything. Turned out later that we've heard that he went by on his way out of town with his family and stopped by and checked on my dog, but left anyway. So he called me later, probably 14th of April, and told me he didn't like my review. And I told him, I said, if anything is wrong in the review, send me all your medical records on Rembrandt. And if something's wrong, I'll change it. And he said, well, I'm suing you, and hung up. That's where we stood. Now, I'm retired. I live on Social Security. And this lawsuit is a suit in excess of $15,000. And the original demands were the money and never to talk about Deland Animal Hospital again. Those were the two demands. Well, the second one was thrown out because you can't deny somebody freedom of speech. And so the only thing they have left now is to go after the money, which is not nearly as difficult for them to pursue financially as it is for me. So far, this has cost me, from the time I hired an attorney until today, approximately $10,000. And that's simply a defense. There's no way I can stop the suit. So it's going on. The suit was supposed to be heard in December, but now they've delayed that until February 25th. So this is going to go on even longer and become even more expensive. The lawsuit, I hope the court determines, is a frivolous lawsuit, which to me it is. What I have said is factually accurate. It's exactly what happened. I don't want anybody ever to have to go through what I went through with my dog there. It was horrible. It was heartbreaking. To pick him up at 9 o'clock at night with the instructions to take him somewhere else. There's no words. So that brings us to my reviews and the fact that they are just pursuing this thing to beat me up financially as the only reason I can think they're going to do it. They're arrogant. They're bullies. And I have to pay the price. But I'm not going to, I can't stop it, but I'm not going to cave in. I'll fight tooth and nail. Rembrandt deserves it, and my family and I deserve it. And that's where we stand, Mike. Information, that's the only thing I can do. I just want other people to know what happened to me. He did not perform his duties as a veterinarian. He claims to be the best vet around, but what he did to me was the worst thing he could do. To do to a dog or do to a dog owner is let a dog lie there bleeding to death for 6 hours. Why would you do that? Why would anybody do that? It's insane. If he can't live, call me. Have me come in and we'll euthanize him. If you think it's risky, just go ahead and do the surgery. You're not going to do the surgery because you think he's going to die, but if you do the surgery, he has a chance to live. If you don't do the surgery, he's surely going to die. I don't know what they're thinking, but he needs to change his thinking. Deland Animal Hospital needs to change their procedures. They need to take care of animals on an emergency basis. Just like it was a person in a car accident, they come into an emergency room, they don't sit around and let them bleed out. They take them in and operate on them. If my dog had been bleeding visibly, maybe something would have woke somebody up. But my dog was bleeding internally. They knew that. They were checking his stomach. It's hard. There's blood inside. So why this happened, I don't know. But it's never should happen again. No. There's nothing they could do. I would never, ever, ever use them. I would never recommend them. He told me when I talked to him the first time that he was going to retrain his staff and take care of it, and they didn't do what he wanted to do, and I found out that pretty much is a lie, that he knew what was going on. He did not do anything to prevent it. He didn't do anything. He was the surgeon that was supposed to operate, and the veterinarian they had on duty was not capable of doing a splenectomy. She told him that. Now, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, so I'm not going to say what she said or what he said or what I'm hearing. I'm only telling you what I know, which is that he told me he was aware of what went on, and that floored me.